It's literally the ending of Animal Farm. Now, I know 95% of you know this story, but, obviously real briefly, you have the farmers and the animals. The animals felt that they were being abused by the farmers, led by Mr. Pilkington, and they rebelled and kicked them out, and the pigs took over. Napoleon was the leader, Napoleon Pig, and obviously brutalized the animals in the very same way times 10 of what he decried. And, obviously everyone knows the story there. Everyone knows the cycle of demagoguery, communism, fascism, things that aren't rooted in ordered liberty, anchored to biblical principles that only our founders for a limited period of time on this continent achieved in governance. Aside from that, in most of history, this is sort of the story. Obviously the direct allegory was the Russian Revolution, but it's everything. So the book ends off with a scene of some of the animals peeking into a window and seeing how Napoleon with the pigs are sitting down and breaking bread with the very farmers that they demagogued. And now he said, finally, this is the head of the farmers, Pilkington. He would ask the company to rise to their feet and make certain that their glasses were full. Gentlemen, concluded Mr. Pilkington, gentlemen, I give you a toast to the prosperity of Animal Farm. There was enthusiastic cheering and stamping of feet. Napoleon was so gratified that he left his place and came around the table to clink his mug against Mr. Pilkington's before emptying it. When the cheering had died down, Napoleon, who had remained on his feet, intimated that he too had a few words to say. Like all of Napoleon's speeches, it was short and to the point. He too, he said, was happy that the period of misunderstanding was at an end. For a long time, there had been rumors circulating, he had reason to think, by some malignant enemy, that there was something subversive and even revolutionary in the outlook of himself and his colleagues. They had been credited with attempting to stir up rebellion among the animals on neighboring farms. Nothing could be further from the truth. Their sole wish now and in the past was to live at peace and in normal business relations with their neighbors. This farm, which he had the honor to control, he added, was a cooperative enterprise. The title deeds, which were in his own possession, were owned by the pigs jointly. He did not believe, he said, that any of the old suspicions still lingered, but certain changes had been made recently in the routine of the farm, which should have the effect of promoting confidence further. The animals on the farm had a rather foolish custom of addressing one another as comrade. This was to be suppressed. There had also been a very strange custom, whose origin was unknown, of marching every Sunday morning past a boar's skull, which was nailed to a post in the garden. This too would be suppressed, and the skull had already been buried. His visitors might have observed, too, the green flag which flew from the masthead. If so, they would perhaps have noted that the white hoof and horn with which it had previously been marked had now been removed. It would be a plain green flag from now onwards. He had only one criticism, he said, to make of Mr. Pilkington's excellent and neighborly speech. Mr. Pilkington had referred throughout to Animal Farm. He could not, of course, know, for he, Napoleon, was only now, for the first time announcing it, that the name Animal Farm had been abolished. Henceforward, the farm was to be known as Manor Farm, which he believed was its correct and original name. Gentlemen, concluded Napoleon, I will give you the same toast as before, but in different form. Fill your glasses to the brim, gentlemen. Here is my toast to the prosperity of the Manor Farm. There was the same hearty cheering as before. The mugs were emptied to the dregs. But as the animals outside gazed at the scene, it seemed to them that some strange thing was happening. What was it that had altered in the faces of the pigs? Clover's old, dim eyes fitted from one face to another. Some of them had 5 chins, some had 4, some had 3. But what was it that seemed to be melting and changing? Then the applause having come to an end, the company took up their cards and continued the game that had been interrupted, and the animals crept silently away. But they had not gone 20 yards when they stopped short. An uproar of voices was coming from the farmhouse. They rushed back and looked through the window again. Yes, a violent quarrel was in progress. There were shoutings, bangings on the table, sharp, suspicious glances, furious denials. The source of the trouble appeared to be that Napoleon and Mr. Pilkington had each played an ace of spades simultaneously. And then, of course, the famous end. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike. No question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which.